So, anyone who listens to my podcast on a regular basis knows that I am a big mediation fan. I think it is a wonderful way to get divorced. It costs less, you get a better outcome, you learn how to communicate with your soon to be ex. The benefits of mediation go on and on for the rest of your lives as you co parent. So, I could go on and on about how much I am a fan of mediation. But what happens when you're trying to mediate a divorce and there's a substance abuse issue in the marriage? One or both of the people is an alcoholic or is an addict to something. That's what I want to talk about today. And my guest is divorce attorney and mediator, Christine Diorio. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Jackie.
And I love having you on, Christine, because you have such a deep understanding about addiction. And you also are a divorce attorney who is a big fan of mediating. So you're perfect for this conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. Definitely.
All right. So let's start with the question of, is it possible to mediate a divorce when there's substance abuse? And then there's two different types of that we're going to talk about. One is that you're dealing with a functional alcoholic who doesn't even think he or she has a problem. And then you could be dealing with someone who knows they have a problem and is in recovery. So is it possible to mediate a divorce in either or both of these scenarios?
Right. Well, um, it's always possible. Yeah, I'm just such a huge proponent of mediation, and depending on your jurisdiction, it's still going to be required, regardless of the status of that person. Like here in Florida, I'm located in Tampa Bay. We are required to go to mediation before we can ever go have a full trial. And in Tampa, in Hillsborough County specifically, even on a temporary motion, even on the first few motions you might file for relief, you have to even mediate that before you can get a hearing on your temporary relief motion. So yes, it's possible. And in most cases, it could be even required that you do it. So it's definitely worth investing your time and talking to your attorney and finding a good mediator to talk about, because you're going to have to do it in most cases anyway.
Well, I love that they have it that you have to try it because a lot of people are like, oh, darn it, we have to try mediation. And then it turns out that it works for them, even though they were dreading it and thinking it wasn't going to. And I'm telling my listeners right now, it's going to cost you less. And I don't care how much you hate your ex, you can still mediate, and it's better for your finances, better for your divorce outcome, better for co-parenting, better for the kids. I mean, there are so many things.
Endless. And there's actual evidence that proves that agreements that made at mediation have a much higher rate of being followed after. So there's less litigation afterwards, like motions for contempt and enforcement, because one party's not following through. Because when both of the parties feel like they've had a stake in the outcome because they actually helped create it, maybe not, they don't love every part of it because there was some compromise going on, they still feel invested in it, they were there. Whereas when you go to trial, the judge is the one who decides everything, does not take very little input from either side. They're just taking evidence, and then they make their decision and you're stuck with it. And so actually it's much more litigated afterwards. People hate the agreement because they had no stake in it. They had no say so in it and how it came out. And so it's actually way better for you to go to mediation and have a say so in the outcome.
Right. I can't believe I forgot to bring that up. Compliance. So
Yeah.
people are more likely to comply if they had something to do with the way things were set up. 100%. Let's move on to the benefits of mediating when there's substance abuse. So, okay, we're going to have to just edit a little bit out. Did you hear? Okay, because I have some background noise. Hang on one second,
Okay.
Christine.
I couldn't hear it, but
Okay, now I can move on. Okay, so One thing that is, I think, extremely important in mediating when there's a substance abuse issue is that make sure that your mediator has an understanding of what substance abuse is and really understands what an alcoholic is. And if not, that mediator needs to bring in like a therapist or somebody who can assist. What do you think about that?
Agree 1,000% with that, because there are special considerations that your run-of-the-mill standard and mediator who's an attorney, if they don't have any training um, or understanding of some of the different dynamics that are involved, they may treat it just like a regular case, and you'll have less assistance from the mediator helping the other side see where it would actually benefit them to go along with some of the things you're suggesting. So, I have always been very open about my own story. This December, God willing, I'll be celebrating 15 years sober. I also have had very close family members who have gone through recovery and have struggled with addiction. So it's something that I also spent 10 years in the criminal justice system as an attorney. So it's something that I have a lot of knowledge about from a legal perspective, from a professional perspective, but also from my own life, personally. And so it's one of the things I'm really passionate about, working with people dealing with substance abuse. And as a mediator, especially, I think making sure your mediator has some background with substance abuse can be really helpful in two ways. One is, like, in my instance, understanding how recovery actually works and functions is very, very helpful, because there's logistical things that, somebody in recovery, they'll be inpatient for a while. Then they're going to probably go through what we call intensive outpatient therapy. There's different names for it, but it's generally, very intensive for maybe 3 months. And then after that, there may be follow-up meetings, and there could be living in a sober living environment. So there's a lot of different phases and stages that it can be really helpful for your mediator to have an understanding of that, because as we all know, parenting plans a lot of time come down to logistics, just simple, like, can I carry this out? How does this look day to day in my life? And so having a mediator and an attorney or a mental health person involved in the whole process of your case can be really valuable. And then I think, just, from a human standpoint, somebody who's empathetic to both sides. In my case, I know what it's like to be the addict. I also know what it's like to be divorcing an addict. I've had actually both experiences in my life. And so I kind of can be more empathetic with the parties from both sides, actually, which makes me, I think, different. It's not everybody's going to have that background, but if you can find somebody who's got that, I think it could be really, really helpful for your outcome.
I just love this so much because you are so right. There are so many people getting divorced where the person who is not the addict, but you're divorcing the person because they're an addict, they don't understand the disease. And if you understand it, now this takes years of therapy and possibly going to Al-Anon, which I would highly recommend, so that you can understand and not be so angry. Not that it's right for somebody to be an abusive alcoholic, but if you understand where the person is coming from and you understand the disease, it really helps you in decision making. It lets you, it causes you to be less angry and more reasonable. And if you don't understand it, then having a mediator and or a therapist involved in your mediation is going to help you, because they're going to be educating you and saying, this person is not doing this on purpose. And that's
Right.
hard for some people to learn, and it takes a while to really understand that. And so, and then for the alcoholic, the person who is the abuse, a person who has the substance abuse problem, they're going to feel like they're not being villainized, like somebody
Right.
is listening to them, understanding them, because they don't want to be like that either. An alcoholic is not a bad person. They're a good person with a bad problem.
Right. Right. And I think having a mediator who understands all of that nuance, kind of knows too, like when I'm in a mediation, or if I'm the attorney on either side of the equation. Like, I know kind of what to listen for from somebody with an addiction problem or somebody in recovery that really gives me indications that they really are taking it seriously, or maybe they're just going through the motions, you know. And not, if you're not as familiar with the recovery process, the world, I mean, AA and Al-Anon and Nar-Anon and all of that, if you're not as familiar with it, you might miss some of those indications. And sometimes, you know, when we're in the middle of a divorce, we're in so much overwhelm and fear and anger and emotional that having somebody there to help you kind of parse through what's happening, that really knows what it's like, it's just invaluable. So, I mean, I actually find that I get I don't know, my deepest sense of fulfillment are the cases where there is substance abuse present, and I'm able to bring my own experience to bear to help my clients through it. You know, whether that's helping, you know, because it's an adversarial process, even when you're at mediation, there is a tendency to, you know, weaponize someone's addiction against. And, you know, I make it really clear to my clients who come to me from the beginning that I'm not in the business of doing that. This is really about safety. This is about, you know, opportunity for recovery, because we know that if we can get someone recovered and we can rebuild a good relationship with their children, that serves everybody's best interests, including the non-addicted person. So I think there needs to be more people in the system with an eye for that, where rather than, you know, a lot of attorneys will be like, yes, I'm going to win. I'm going to go for the jugular. We're going to shut this guy down. He's not going to see his kids, you know, because now the client feels happy about that maybe initially, but really, like, search your heart a little bit. As let's just use a mom as an example. Do you really want to go it alone for the rest of your life raising these kids, or would you like the opportunity to have a good co-parent who's actually healthy for your children? And let's set up a system that gets them there down the road. It's not overnight, and it may not happen, but don't you want to, like, at least allow that, you know, keep that possibility alive for your children? So, you know, having somebody who understands addiction, who's been able to, you know, overcome it, is really, really helpful. And I hope that we see more and more discussion of this in the system.
You're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. I'm here today with divorce attorney and mediator Christine Diorio. Christine has been a prosecuting attorney. She's been a criminal defense attorney, and she's been a divorce attorney and a wills and estate planning attorney for several years. And we are talking about, can you mediate a divorce if there's substance abuse? We are going to take a short break. When we come back, we have more tips. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Can you mediate a divorce when there's substance abuse involved? Yes, and we are talking about how, and we are giving tips for that. My guest is divorce attorney and mediator and wills and estate planning attorney, Christine Diorio. And Christine, I want to tell my audience that you can also help anyone in the whole state of Florida. So
Yes,
you're based in Tampa, but you can do Zoom mediations and represent people in the whole state. I just want people to know
yeah,
that.
and absolutely. If somebody calls the office and asks for and mentions Divorced Girl Smiling, you know, I'll hop on a call with you for free. If you just want to talk about substance abuse and how it relates to divorce, it's something I love talking about. I'm passionate about it. So, and if they found me through this wonderful community, I'm more than happy to just hop on a call and talk with you. So, you know, reach out.
Okay, so let's move on to tips, more tips for people who are thinking, am I going to be able to mediate my divorce even though my spouse has a substance abuse issue? So I'm just going to say one word, sober link. So,
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
beautiful.
it's truly such a wonderful answer to so many problems related to substance abuse. Don't you agree?
Oh, it's such a game changer. I know you and I talked about before. We both went through our own divorces, 2008-ish. You know, it wasn't around back then. And I know for me at that point in my life, you know, and my ex-husband and I, he's very comfortable, you know, talking openly, you know, he had a substance abuse problem. He's also in recovery and almost 15 years sober himself. But at the time, his sobriety was not solid. And, you know, the only solution at that point was I got more time with the kids than he did. But if we had had something like SoberLink, you know, I think it would have been better for everybody involved. It would have given me a much more sense of peace when the kids were with their dad. But you know, SoberLink, it's such great technology. So if you're not familiar with it, it's a breath test that uses though facial recognition technology, so they can't fake it. Basically, it's got built-in, you know, whereas like, you know, for instance, some of you probably heard of people having an interlock breath test in their ignition.
Right. If you get a DUI, you
Right,
have to have like a breath test where you breathe into this tube and then the car won't start unless it works.
right,
SoberLink is the same concept, but you can't cheat. And
right,
it's not just the car. You have to do it in your house with their device. So you
right,
can't cheat and you take it before your kids are coming over. So you, as the other parent, have proof that your ex has not been drinking before your kids come
right.
there.
So it's like you can, and in your mediation, where mediation becomes really valuable, is you can negotiate how often they're SoberLink going to use their SoberLink. So most of the time baseline before, during, and after time, right? We want to make sure they're sober before the kids, while the kids, and then right at the end. So we weren't, you know, drinking right at the end of the time sharing. And then what's lovely is the results are sent. You can choose how you get your results, usually through email, and they can come straight to you, straight to both attorneys, one attorney. It's up to you how you get the results. And then if there isn't what they call either a compliant test, which means they did not detect alcohol, or a non-compliant test, you're alerted right away. So it really gives everybody a sense of safety. And then what's nice too is down the road, because most of the time when a substance abuse issue is present, we're working on a step up type of parenting plan where we start out with small amounts of interaction and build up. Well, now the client or the party who's in recovery has now a paper trail of showing, look how responsible I've been. Look at all of this, you know. So now SoberLink is just for alcohol. So if there's an issue with drug use, we can do other kinds of testing, such as hair and nails. I learned in one of my cases that actually a toenail test can go back many years worth. So I didn't know that. I think it's 3 years worth of showing where, you know, the hair follicle can go back a year to 90 days.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy, like the technology that's out there. But there are other tests that you can use to make sure you can, you know, figure out where someone's got a clean slate and then continue the testing if there is maybe drugs involved.
All right, now I want to say something about, I want to swap this out to switch it over to the person who might be accused of being an alcoholic. Then I would say, bring it on. Let's have
Right,
SoberLink.
right,
Now you don't have to worry and you can prove your sobriety and say, look, he or she is making this up. I will do tests all day long, but I want my kids.
right.
And so it really works both ways.
It does. It's good for the person who has the quote unquote problem or is being accused of having the problem. And it's good for the other party because now they're feeling, you know, they're safe. They know, at least now we all know that doesn't necessarily mean just because they're sober, they're suddenly this wonderful parent. I mean, that's just part of any divorce, right? We're not thrilled in the beginning of when we're in divorce, when our kids leave us, you know, it's not fun, but at least you're going to have this sense of safety built in. And what I can tell you too, is judges love sober. They love it because it, you know, gives them a sense, because listen, they're accountable, right? I mean, they could be, if something bad happens to these kids while they're in, on time sharing with the parent with the addiction. Now the judge looks like they're the ones that weren't taking it seriously. So the judges love it.
Absolutely.
So when you know the judges love it, then when you're in mediation asking for it, you're going to have even more leverage to get the other party to agree to it. So yeah, SoberLink's the greatest thing. I'm so glad that we have it and I use it, I think, in every single substance abuse yeah, I think it's just par for the course now in substance abuse
And
cases.
it's not super expensive either.
No,
And I want to add, if you go to soberlink.com/DGS for Divorced Girl Smiling, you get $50 off your device.
oh, that's,
So Christine, we haven't even talked about this. You should do that with your clients. Tell them to do
yeah,
that if they get SoberLink.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it, it's just, it's such a great piece of accountability that's built in for everybody involved. So, I mean, like I said, I wish it was around back in when I was getting divorced. It would have been
I
great.
know. It just helps people have peace of mind, and it helps the kids because they're with a sober parent. And drinking around kids, whether you have an addiction problem or not, is just to me really unacceptable. It's really not, I'm not a
And,
fan.
there's some, I believe there's some case law in Florida, so I'm not sure how it works across the United States, but you can actually have the party that's required to pay for SoberLink, that actually can get factored into your child support. So, that's how much they're trying to encourage people that if there's substance abuse issues and agreeing to that.
I love that. And thanks for throwing that in there. Okay, last thing I want to talk about is when people say, can you litigate? Let's say you're going down the litigation path and then you decide that, well, maybe we can mediate or we're running out of money and this is taking too long and I want this to end. Is going to mediation a possibility even during litigation? Tell me about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes. I mean, if you mean like in the middle of your trial, I bet you even in the middle of your trial, you could say, Judge, we really feel like we want to, maybe not a full mediation, but, the lawyers want to step outside. I think we can work this out. In family court, they want to see people settle their own disputes. I mean, that is just what judges hate family law. You're going to find those judges that love it, but they're the rare birds. Most judges don't like it because it's so emotional. It's so hard. It's so, acrimonious, all those things. So judges love it when people come up with their own agreements. So yeah, even if but like I said, in Florida, you have to mediate first. But let's just say you go to mediation, it impasses, you fall apart, and now we're filing, we're getting ready, we're doing depositions, we're doing things, and one of the parties says, "Hey, Judge, they can file a motion and ask the judge to order the parties back to mediation. The judge can hear both sides and actually enter an order and make it go back, which is very common because again, judges love mediation. So if the judges can get you to mediate, they're going to want to see you do that. And I think even if you're starting off in litigation, you can always go to mediation.
Christine, thank you so much for all this wonderful information. I can't believe we're out of time.
Oh, well, like I said, I could talk about this forever, but anything that I can do to help spread the word, just about the fact that, it is possible. It is possible to recover, stay in recovery. I mean, me and my ex-husband both have almost 15 years now of recovery. We're great co-parents. We've come a really long way. So a lot of times there's a defeatist, idea out there that, once an addict, you're just always an addict. You're never, and it is something you have to work on continually throughout the rest of your life. But it is possible. It is possible to start off with addiction and rebuild your life sober and have a great relationship with your kids. And that's really the ideal for both people. Both
Well,
people.
you actually read my mind because I was going to say, not only are you a really good lawyer, take the substance abuse out of it, but you're such an inspiration to people. I mean, I know if I lived in Florida and I was getting divorced and there was addiction involved, either on either party, you're my person because you get it. You've been there, you've lived it, you've walked the walk, but you're also a very experienced attorney and a wills and estate planning attorney.
Yep.
So
I kind of
sorry
try to,
about that.
we do a lot, and the wills and estates just again came in naturally from helping people through divorce, because once you're divorced, you do need to update your will or your trust or create one, because now might be a little different dynamic going on. You want to make sure that especially if there's substance abuse, you don't want
For
your
sure. I was just going to say
something
that.
happens to you, you don't necessarily, want your ex ending up with your children's inheritance, because in Florida, they won't be able to access it until they're 18. And that puts the surviving parent in charge of the money. So, there's that's one reason that we ended up opening that division. Now we've also expanded to have a mediation division. So anything that I can do, to help spread the word though about substance abuse and how it relates to family law, that's really my passion.
And regarding the wills and estates planning part of this, it's a fixed cost. So it's not like your divorce attorney that you're being billed hourly, right? It's a fixed cost. So
It's
you
a
can
flat
talk
fee.
about your wills and estate plan with Christine for as
Yeah.
long as you want. You can ask questions, ask her, what should I do about this? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just one price, which I
That's
love.
right. And I know I feel bad because a lot of times when we're finally done with our divorce case, we're a little fatigued from having our billing, working on the billable hour. You never quite know how much is my divorce going to cost by the end of it. I mean, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But with estate planning, it's totally different. It's one set price depending on what you end up with, a will or a trust, although I feel like most people benefit from a trust. But anyway, it's a fixed cost. You're absolutely right about that. And for my clients, I always give them a discount. So if they've been with me for family law and they come on over and finish up everything with estate planning, we actually give them a discount for that. But I just try to serve my clients as holistically as I can. And it's all born from having gone through it myself. It's just knowing what it's like to stand in your shoes and having to rebuild and go forward after divorce. It's tough, for all of you going through it. Keep hanging in there, though. It does get better, I promise.
Christine, you're awesome. Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much
having
again
me,
for being
Jackie.
here.
Thank you so much. And thanks for all you're doing with Divorce Girl Smiling.
I just love doing it. If you like what you heard and you want to talk to Christine, the best place to find her is christinediorio.com. You can also find her in the trusted professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling, along with so many other wonderful, trusted, vetted divorce professionals. You can also go to divorcedgirlsmiling.com to listen to more podcasts, read articles, download my mobile app, or sign up for my free consult. Okay. Need to edit that out, please. And then I need to go get a big glass of water.
Bless your heart.
Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and we'll talk to you real soon.